We did last time.
Yeah, we're good.
You filmed it. We just didn't record it. You wanted you to hit record.
It's recorded.
Well, you know, we're going to start fresh one day, and we'll get it all done.
It's recorded.
So, any questions on the income we looked at 2 weeks ago? Because we didn't have class last week. 2 weeks ago. Tax returns. What does anyone feel would be the toughest income to qualify based on what we looked at? Who felt that they would have trouble with something?
Probably self-employed.
Self-employed.
Yeah, that's probably the toughest.
Remember, the key is just looking at the bottom line income. That front page on the bottom where it says the net, not the gross. And then remember, we want to go back into the actual expenses of the business and pull forward any depreciation and anything that could be added back, okay? Hourly income is very detrimental because remember, we looked at year-to-date income. All right, so just for those of you who weren't here 2 weeks ago, if you're salaried, you can go right off that current pay stub. You can go right off the current salary. It doesn't matter if you made $2,000 a month 2 weeks ago. If you got a raise and you're on salary and you're making $5,000 a month, that's what we qualify you on. What we looked at a lot last time 2 weeks ago was hourly income, commission income being you're looking at 15s, you're averaging it out. You're looking at 16s, you're averaging it out. We use this sheet over here. It's in the system, okay? And then you use the year-to-date. Why? Because we want to see yesterday's picture, real far yesterday's picture and today's picture in order to get a good value of the income. Some people may have a big, you're on a job and you get overtime for 6 months, but it's not something you normally get. Maybe you're a construction worker or a union member and they're working on a big job, so you get a lot of overtime. But we don't want to qualify you and let you buy a house based on just that 1 year's income, because when your income levels off, you're not going to be able to afford it anymore, okay? Many people always look to get the biggest house they can or the price range that they qualify at the moment. If we're always doing the highest number, anything changes in that person's life. Less income, not on the job as much, no overtime. It dramatically changes their household income. So remember that. You're looking at 2 years average along with the year-to-date average on anyone that's got commission, hourly wage, and even self-employed, okay? And with self-employed, remember, we use a year-to-date P&L. You're going to use, let's say right now you use 2015 tax returns, 2016 tax returns, and the year-to-date profit and loss statement. Profit and loss statement will be given by their accountant, okay? Whoever files their taxes can put it together. And it doesn't have to be audited. For those of you in the business, you'll know that it used to be always had to be audited. Now it's not. All right, now we're going to roll forward to credit. And the easiest thing for me to do is to give you guys 1, 2, 3. So that's you 3 guys. And I got 2 for you 2. All right, so this credit I pulled first is good credit. Don't open it, don't look at it, we're not there yet. Because that's why I usually don't like to give this stuff away. When I go over it on the line by line, then we'll do it. So one of the things we want to discuss is credit. And when you're talking to people and you go, how's your credit? Many people will go, good now, great today. Oh, I got everything under control. Remember, it's a credit history. It's a 2-year history, just like everything else. 2 years of where you live, 2 years of where you work, 2 years of income, and a minimum of a 2-year credit history, okay? So it's what your credit history is, not just what it is today. Somebody may have just gotten money and got to pay everything off. So we're looking at those items. So in terms of the quality of credit, you want to see what the trend is, okay? A lot of investors we have, and even us with FHA, will do a lower FICO score. We've gone down to 580. But that's a 580 that's on its way up from a lower number, not a 580 that was on its way down from 680. Because if you're trending towards having credit problems now, that's not going to be a good time to do a loan. You need some clean credit history over the last 2 years, okay? And the last 12 months is critical. I didn't bring that one, but I should have. I actually have a file that I'm working on right now where the lady has only 3 little pieces of credit, perfect, hasn't been late ever. Well, her mortgage which is current, has 42 30-day lates on the mortgage, almost consecutively. Now, you would think that someone who's got a perfect credit everywhere else, that what happened? So she explained to me that she gets paid every 2 weeks. It doesn't always fall into the same date that her payments are due. So she's got to use more than one check to cover it. She called up the bank, which was a bank like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and said, hey, what happens if I pay a little bit later from the first? Well, they didn't give her the right info. They gave her the extreme info. They told her that as long as you make that mortgage payment within 40 days of the date it was due, you won't be in default. They didn't explain that if you paid after the 15th, you would have a late payment, and they never explained that if you paid after the 30th, you're going to have a late fee after the 15th and a late payment show up after the 30th. Now, in most cases, I would be a little skeptical when people tell me a story like that, but in talking to her, I absolutely believe her. Everything else is perfect. Everything else is on time. She's a nurse, so she's educated, but she doesn't understand anything to do with finances. The question that she was asking me about finances is someone who I would say just getting out of high school. And here's a 55-year-old woman who's a nurse and really only has had a couple major credit cards. She had 2 little credit cards and a car payment, which is over. So I tend to believe her. Now, that creates a problem. Her FICO score was 696, 703, and 689, which you guys know is pretty good. That's a pretty good score. So the challenge is, guys, can I go Fannie Mae or FHA with this? No. So I'm going to have to use an alternative product. It's a little bit off. Rate's going to be about 6.4, but I'll be able to take care of what she wants to take care of, give her cash out, and then we can get her back into a loan in the 4s within a year. She needs at least that 1 year clean with no 30-day lates. But when I write this application, for the application to speed forward, we're going to need an explanation. So, of course,
Or tenure at penny buck.
Oh,
I put MCC mortgage class.
all right. So we're going to have an outside room like that over there. So I'm going to have them do a credit explanation when I hand in the loan so that no one's going to ask for it. It's already going to be in the package when it goes to underwriting. Remember, when I hand in the file for underwriting, the first thing that underwriter is going to look at is that credit report. It's going to see a great score, and then it's going to see 42 times 30 days late. And it's like January 13, February 13, March 13, April 13. May was good. June 13, July 13, August was good, September 13. She had no idea it was going to affect her credit, okay? Good news is she actually had spoken to someone before she spoke to me, was referred to me by someone who I did a loan with, and I was able to help her out. But she was told by another bank, yeah, we can't do it. So that actually works well. And again, it was a warm lead. A friend of mine I knew from childhood, it's his ex-wife. He referred her over, so she feels comfortable in explaining it and working with it. So again, those warm leads work better because she told the other bank, yeah, I don't want to do anything with you. So now with that said, let's take a quick look at this. We actually did it backwards. Go to, I don't know, we'll just flip over to the next page. All right, this, say it again. Okay. So you're going to get it 2 guys out there in cyberspace. So I'll go slow until you catch up. Very simply put, your first page, discount this one. This is really the last page. So when you flip it up, the very first page says UCS on top. It'll talk about Family First Funding. We ordered the credit report. I blanked out the names to protect the innocent. Okay. This one is a really, really good score. 779, 774, 766. Okay? And if you look, let's go through what it means. Now, in most cases, you have Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, and they kind of give you a little basic information, but it's just that basic information. No matter what the scores are, no matter how the credit looks, it always says length of accounts have to be established, inquiries. They mention all that stuff in there. When you look down, you're going to actually have, we have an echo. You now actually have the actual credit. So the first things you're looking at, it says BB. That means it's the borrower's credit, not a co-borrower credit. So Nissan Infinity is a creditor. If you look below, it's got an account number and it says auto lease. The date reported, which means the last time that Infinity Credit, Nissan Infinity, posted an update on the credit report was September 17th, 9/17. If you look at the next box and look up, it says date open. The date open was 8/17. So this pretty much is a brand new account. 9/17, again, it's giving you the date that it's current. Third box, or actually the fourth box, says high credit or credit limit. So this auto loan started out at $8,975. The next box shows you the current balance, $8,476, and the payments, 036 means 36 months. So this loan for $8,476 is a 36-month loan at $249. That's the basics. When you're looking at credit, you want to always look at the date opened. You want to look at the high credit. You want to look at the type of loan. Now we have the balance, monthly payment, because the monthly payment helps us determine our DTI, debt to income ratio. Now comes the good stuff. Here's a tell-all of whether this file is going to be a go or a no. Big box. No need a big box, but it's there, so you look at it first. Past due. If you were currently past due, which I'm going to show you another credit report, it would have a number in there. It would tell you how much they're past due. This account is brand new, so it says MOREV. That stands for months revolving. So this is now telling you that this is only 1 month old. They've only made one payment. And it makes sense. Credit was taken out in August. First payment was in September. So they've only made one payment. Now comes the boxes that tell you how many times and how bad they were late. The first box has a 30, which stands for 30 days late. The 0 means this account has never been late 30 days. 30 days late means the September 1 payment is paid in October, or the August payment is paid in September. If the payment's due August 15th and you pay on September 16th, you are now 30 days late. You want to always try to make your payments, even if you don't make them on time, within the 30 days, because it never shows up in here, as long as you make them within the 30 days. The next box says 60. We can extrapolate that that means 60 days late. So if it's an August payment and you make it in October after that date, so an August 1st paid in October 10th would be 60 days late. And of course, 90 is the same answer. An August payment made in November would be 90 days late. And then on the side over here, it'll say is agreed. It'll say 3 times 30, and it'll actually give you dates. When you pull up poor credit, you'll see it. All of this will say the same thing. What I will point to as being different is the Chase card says flexible spending credit card, and there's an authorized user. Let's go to the front. The main borrower has an A, and our guy is a B. So we can see that our borrower is not the main borrower on this card. Someone else is. Date was reported 9/17. They've had this credit since January 17. Last payment was 8/17, and they reported it in 9. $33,000 limit. Revolving stands for, it's a revolving credit line. It's a credit card. The balance due is $1,929, and the minimum payment is $25. Zero past due, 8 months revolving, 0 times 30, 0 times 60, 0 times 90, as agreed, as reported by Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Those double letters represent the names on the left where the scores are. EQ, Equifax is EF, TransUnion is TU, and Experian is XP. So if you look at the ones on the left where the numbers are, you'll see the names that go along with those call letters. Third credit is American Express. And they are the borrower on both of them. Well, actually, it just puts a BB, which says it's them. September, again, it was reported, opened in July, 25,000 high credit, and they only owe $75, and it probably had a minimum payment, was already paid. 0 past due, 2 months revolving, 0 times 30, 60, 90, as agreed. If you look down, it says the same thing on all of them. If you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you'll see an Amex, DS, and B. Amex stands for American Express, and DSNB would be the store that they're the card for. So if that was a Costco card with American Express, it would say Amex/COSTCO. DSNB stands for one of the stores. This borrower is an authorized user on this card. Okay? And again, all the answers are the same. It was last reported in August. It was opened in 4 of 10, 4 of 2010. 7/17 is when the last payment came. Has a $3,500 high credit. Balance is only $54. $27 minimum payment. 0 past due, 89 months in existence. 030, 060, 090. Take a quick look down. We don't need to look at every single one. It means what it means. Now, if you look below, you'll see closed accounts. All these accounts here are either paid off or just closed. These happen to all be paid off. So whether they were credit cards, whether they were auto loans, no matter what it is, these accounts here are closed. Flip up to the next page. You have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more closed accounts. Now, here's where you want to look next. It's actually going to give you a summary and give you some new information. Don't just look at the first page because there's always hidden stuff down the road. So here you are on page 4, and they're going to tell you are there derogatory accounts, and it says none. Other credit history, none. Inquiries. This stands for how many times they've had their credit pulled in the recent time. So if you look, Equifax Services was pulled on 8/28, and it's financed. If you go to the first page of our pull, it tells you we pulled on 8/28. Nope, 9/22. Someone else pulled it. 8/28, a mortgage company pulled the credit. EMS is actually the mortgage company. So they show up as a pull, and Equifax will show up as a pull as well. On August 9th, they pulled up for the car. That's very important that you see this because you see that it says Nissan Motors, and then you see on page 1, we got Nissan Motors, same month. So it's an inquiry that turned into a loan. That's important because the loan officers in here that have written a loan know that the borrower always has to write an explanation explaining if any credit has resulted from an inquiry, because it doesn't always show. If I went in today and went in to look at a car, they pulled my credit, and I went to pull my credit again a day later to do a loan, it's going to show that I went to Nissan Motors and pulled my credit, but a loan isn't going to show because it was too soon. Even if I drive out with the car, it's not going to show up for a minimum of 30 days because that information has to get to the bank has to report it, and they only report once a month. And it's between the 9th and the 15th of every month. So me buying a car this month and the payment that I'm paying will not show up till next month. So you don't want to get caught where that pulls up an inquiry. You say, no, I didn't buy anything. And then as we're getting ready to close a loan, we run a soft pull and find out you got a $335 payment. Now you can't buy the house. The single largest purchase that has ruined mortgage applications has been autos. Oh, I'm approved for my loan. Dwayne knows, he's been with me for years. Guy turns around, gets approved. We're getting ready to close in however many days it is. And he goes out and buys a Mercedes for $835. And it shows up, the inquiry. Once the inquiry shows up, then we actually ask them a question. And we then do a soft pull prior to close. And the payment shows up. Why? Because the credit company actually checks into what it is, even though it's not fully reported until the following month. So that becomes a major issue. Rule number one, right, Kevin? What do you tell your people as soon as you start the loan?
Do not buy anything of value.
Now, the second largest purchase that people buy as they're buying a house would be furniture. All of a sudden, a $300, $400, $500 bills. Well, I had to buy the kids new bedroom sets, and I bought a new dining room set. I just refurnished the whole darn house. Well, you just refurnished the whole darn house, and you're going to put that stuff right back in your apartment because that's where you're going. So you don't qualify anymore. I tell everyone, do not do anything without calling me first, period. Now, if someone has a lease on a car and they're paying a few bucks, I tell them, and it's due while we're doing a loan, I ask them, what are you looking to get? What's the payment? Well, I've been paying $450 on that Infinity. I can get the same Nissan for $265 because it's the same basic car. All right, if you're going down, do it, but let me know. Get me a copy of the coupon so I can get your credit updated because you're stuck. I got to turn it back. You know, there are occasions that things happen, but we want to be apprised and we want to be ahead of schedule and understanding it so that we can give it to the underwriter so there's no surprises. It doesn't work well. I mean, those of you who are old enough that have kids and those of you who have had girlfriends or boyfriends, it's not good to be surprised to have your counterparty surprised by information. Why were you at that roller rink last night with that woman, right? Right? Or your kid. I thought you told me you were going to Bob's house, and I called Bob's mom, and you weren't there. All right? It's always very negative to have an underwriter look at a file because they always think the worst. It's the worst. They went out and bought a new car. They went out and refinanced them. They didn't pay the debt. So we always want to be ahead of the game, present the picture properly, and make sure they get it and they understand it so that when they look at it, it's not a surprise and a negative impact. Okay? So never let them buy anything while you're doing a loan without consulting you first. And if you're not sure where to go, ask anyone in the office in terms of processing. You know, we want to look at the ratios. What are you doing? I got to turn it back. It's very easy to just play with the numbers. We have a little it's called sandbox. What do kids do with sandboxes? They play. They play, right? So there's a little tool within our Encompass that when you right-click, when you're going to open up the file, it'll say sandbox mode. When you click it, it'll let you play with the numbers and flip it around without changing anything in the system. Okay? And then you can look and go, oh, Bob wants to buy furniture, and he says it's $225 a month. And you could put that $225 a month in and look at the ratios and say, oh, I'm still at a 36 or a 38, and you're good. And you can say, go ahead, if it's an absolute must. It was on sale. It was only 1P. You know, it's just like everything. It's the only one there. I got to have it. Tell them they got to talk to you first. Tell them it makes a big difference because we know everything that you do. And if inquiries pop up prior to close, we now got to get that verified and proved out. Okay? So you can see on every date what happened. And you can see, like the American Express was pulled on 2 dates in July, and then it turned into a loan. Okay? One turned into a credit card, and the other one turned into an auto loan. Now, public records. Does anybody know what that term means, public records?
Tax liens.
Tax liens is a situation on public records. So anything that's been filed at the courthouse and a negative impact, tax liens, collections that have been charge-offs, bankruptcies, very good, bankruptcies, will show up in a search called public records. And then we got to find out what it is. And it's part of your questions and your application. Back page, which we'll get to in the next couple of weeks, says, have you ever been bankrupt in the last 7 years? Answer is yes or no. If you say no, and you were, it will show up here. I tell people all the time, just answer the questions honestly so that if I know it, I can help you. If it shows up later, I may not be able to help you out because I don't know how to fix it. If I can see it up front, I can navigate through the muddy waters or the storm to help you get to the place you want to be. So that will show up. And I think my other report will have something in there. The next item is when any people do have something wrong with their credit and they don't know what it is going to give you every creditor that's on the front pages, the name of the company, a street address, and in most cases, a phone number so that they can call and find out, hey, you've got me listed as I owe you $300 as a collection account. Who are you? Do you have my records? And then they can check backwards. Many times it's a duplicate name. It could be a relative. It could be someone with the name, common names, John Smith. Do you know how many John Smiths there are in the country? Thousands, hundreds of thousands. John Smith. There are many common names. And sometimes the only way to determine the difference is your address and your social security number. So these things will pop up. On the search, it happens all the time. You'll have someone with a very, very common name, Jose John Hernandez, Jose Martin, things like that of Hispanic nature, Maria Hernandez. That will be a very common Hispanic name, and there may show up 20 liens and judgments under a Maria Hernandez. Just doesn't happen to be ours, okay? So very important to take a look at it. This is the info you have here. Miscellaneous information. Never had to use it. Fraud, high-risk fraud alert. Okay. You're going to get this fraud alert on a couple of different occasions. Most of it ties into the same thing. The bad part of it. So I went to college, and I happened to get a credit card in college, and I used my address because I was planning to stay at that apartment from now on, right? But I was living in Springfield, New Jersey, and I'm at school up in Ramapo or Montclair, and I have an apartment up there. So as soon as you start using a different address, things will pop up in the fraud alert. Hello, wait a minute, we have you in Springfield, New Jersey. What's this? So something will pop up there in many cases. If you have multiple, that'll come out a lot. If you've applied for credit in a short period of time with 2 or 3 different addresses, that's going to put up a red alert. Okay, and it's also going to show up in the fraud alerts that we pull with the company. So that's a very good indication of where we go. Now, let's say my name is very unique. The last name is Kenmure. But if you go to Sears, you see something similar to my name on almost every tool and appliance there. It's Kenmore. I can't tell you how many times people have run my credit with an O instead of a U, and the fraud alert pops up because it thinks I'm using an alias. Okay, so if I pull everything up, Edward W. Kenmure III, and somebody decides to pull up Ed Kenmure, that's now an alias. An alias is going to pop up. It's going to say he's run credit in another name, or he's opened credit in another name. Hello. How are you? Okay, so people who ever had their credit run accidentally or intentionally, where do we go with intentionally? Well, you might lose things if you change the name a little bit. You'll be surprised at what doesn't follow through. So if I turn around and run my credit report, Ed Kenmure, and I change one number of my social security, fraud alert's going to lose its mind. And if I use a different address. So here is where you start extrapolating what you're going to do with an individual. You're going to be surprised. You may have 100 applications and never get one like that, and you might take 2 applications, and on your third, you got someone who's already playing games. You will see a lot of different discrepancies within the credit report, but again, this is a good spot to start checking it. You have to go through it. You'd rather know this up front than have a file, the front end look good, you put it in the system, it goes into underwriting, and now you got 1,000 questions. Who's John Doe? Your borrower's John Dower, D-O-W-E-R. Who's John Doe? It showed up over here. So very important to take a look at this and see what's there.
So what if they say, I have no idea why I'm coming up? because that's probably
Well,
what they're gonna say.
It's going to say more than, it's not just going to say fraud alert. It's going to say why. It's going to have, what you want to do then is start looking at the addresses. They show addresses. You want to start looking at, it'll tell you why. Alias, Ed Kenmure. Alias, Ed Kenmore. Someone ran it with an O. Address change. Social security numbers off. It will actually tell you what the alias is in many cases. And at that point, when it gets worse and you can't really find it, we have to get the bar to check with Universal Credit, and they can do that as well, or whatever credit agency you're using. There's a number of credit agencies that we use. They start doing the homework to find out what happened. Okay? When you see simple things like an address, a name that's a little off, an address to me is the most common one. Once you start going into name and a number being backwards, I mean, many of us in the world are kind of dyslexic. So a 5-4 could be a 4-5 any day of the week. And you can say, hey, but when you see an address is off, the numbers are inverted, and the name isn't as usual, what the ID says, you know they might be playing the game. Okay? But you got to be wary. You don't have the cues. You can just ask, what's this? What's that? How did you go? And they're going to have to write out a detailed explanation. And then they got to work with the credit agencies to get it corrected. Okay? So when you see it, you work it, we'll help you with the answers, and we move forward with that. Last page is just an outline. You can look at it yourself. There's no important features there. All right. Now, let's put that one aside. 2 for you. You want one? Yeah, right. Okay, go all the way. Put one on this. You can hold one. You can put one on this chair. All right. So now here is the total opposite, almost. Now, I like this one because it wasn't a purely bad one. Okay. This is one. My assistant is going to send over this stuff so you can look at it as well. Am I correct? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I use this one because it's got a couple nuances. Look at the scores on the left, upper middle, 603, 560, 573. The first line under each number says, serious delinquency in derogatory public record or collection file. Okay, that tells it all. So now let's take a look. Well, the open accounts, American Express is perfect. CBNA is perfect. It doesn't have any balances, but these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 accounts are perfect. Bank of America, real estate mortgage, comes out perfect. And you have Bank of America, another, it's now doing it again. So there must have been a first and a second on this. Okay. Now, if you notice, there's no balance up top, which means it was paid off and it had no delinquencies while they have it. It's an older account. Its listing is open because I'm not saying paid, but I'm probably going to find it somewhere else. So pretty much all the accounts have very, very little balances on them. Now we have closed account section. They also are in good shape. These accounts were closed at the consumer's request. Second one, consumer disputes the account information. This is when a dispute is when the client or the consumer, in this case, our potential borrower, had an issue with something that the credit report was showing. And whenever you dispute it, they kind of blank out the numbers. I chose this for a particular reason in this one case. So what the agencies have done, so let's say 1 or 2 of these accounts were showing a delinquency or a high balance, or maybe the credit card was stolen and you're challenging the credit. What happens is your credit score is now altered because, as you can see, they're showing zero balance, zero delinquencies, zero monthly payment. These accounts may actually be zero, but they may actually have more information to it. You may actually have the information. You may actually have payments due, late payment history. So Kevin and I both had clients recently that didn't realize this is something new that occurred this year, where these agencies and the lenders themselves, once someone goes into dispute, the agency goes, okay, until you guys decide what it is, we can't negatively impact him. We're just going to blanket until you guys decide what it is and send me the updated information. As long as that borrower keeps that account in dispute, it's going to look like this. It's going to have blanks across it. It's not going to have any info. Why is that a problem? Well, people can use that as a tool. I have a collection account with Macy's, and I'm going to hide it by claiming I'm disputing it. So now it hides it. So what's happening now is we, as lenders, the underwriter is going to require that all disputes are now either forfeited or resolved. What happens then is the borrower has to now call the credit reporting agency and the lenders and get them undisputed. Send them an email, send them a letter, get them on the phone, whatever they ask for, they get it, and they become undisputed. The minute they're undisputed, you now get the information that shows up. Some of it might be fine. Some of it might show late payments. What happens at that point? Can anyone think? What could happen next once the actual reporting goes on to this report? It'll affect the credit score. Exactly. So if somebody's disputing two accounts and there happen to be late payments on them, and they say, all right, look, it's resolved. If the bank hasn't resolved it to the point where you're right, we'll take it off, they're going to go, oh, it's resolved, and I'm still going to keep it on because you did make it late. It's going to now lower your scores. Okay? So very important, the minute you see counts in dispute, you need to get them undisputed. Can't even hand in the loan. It will not even go through underwriting. It will get kicked back. It'll say, counts in dispute, I can't underwrite the file because I don't know what the score is. I can't run a computerized approval. I can't run a DU or an LP because I don't know what the actual score is. So these things all need to be resolved before we actually get to day one of the loan. Because understand, we go right to underwriting, not to processing. So we need to take care of that ASAP. Very important. Disputed accounts need to be resolved before we can proceed to underwriting. As you can see on line 3 and 4, it says consumer disputes after resolution. And then the next one says dispute resolved, customer disagrees. So now that's resolved. It's not the same account number as the one above, but that one actually is resolved, and that's the correct number. The one above, the cap one above it, it's got to be undisputed, and the one above that as well. Has to say resolved, whether it resolved amicably or negatively. All right, derogatory accounts. Here we go. So this borrower had a Verizon account, and it's closed. And this was last reported in January of 17. It was opened in July of 15. High credit is being marked as 0. The balance due is $14.37. Past due, as it says, is $14.37. It's got, once it ends, they usually stop the numbers, and it's in collection. Once it's in collection, it kind of overrides some of those payments over there. Some of them do, some of them don't. So right now, as far as we know, Verizon is in collection for $1,437. And I'm going to assume the borrower still owes it. There are many occasions where they paid it and it doesn't get updated. And so you got to ask them for the proof. Okay? Certain loans, it becomes an issue. You can pay it before closing. Some files are so strict, you got collections, you can't do it. But FHA will allow you to pay this debt prior to close. FHA will actually allow you to close with some debt on it, okay, like this. But you want to always look at the rules, and you got to remember, you got to get computer approval. So if it's too severe, even though FHA may allow it, the computer won't approve it. And if the computer doesn't approve it, you're not going to be able to close it and sell it and get the HUD insurance on it, okay? Pinnacle LLC Research. It says factoring company. A factoring company means original creditor of Verizon. They turn around and bought that $1,400 for maybe 20 cents on the dollar. They gave them $275, and now they're going to go collect $1,200. Look at the number, $1,291. Many places do that. They pay 10, 15, 20 cents on the dollar, and then whatever they collect over the 10, 15, 20 cents is a score. It's all profit. It's a business. Still in collection. The number's been adjusted to $1,291, and we got to prove it's either paid or not. By the way, we still need the consumer, as we're moving forward, to close the door, Paolo. We still need the consumer to explain what happened. Many occasions, there's good reason for what happened. Sometimes it's not just a matter that they didn't pay, but there was a dispute on the account. Capital One, account closed at credit grantor's request. Last reported April 17, 2017, opened April of 2008. Last worked on in April of 2011, $500 high balance. Somehow they owe $1,212. It was 99 months revolving, has a 1 times 30, a 1 times 60, and 3 90s. And it's in collection. So it's actually a charge-off. Now, a collection and a charge-off are two different things. A collection is that they're still trying to collect the account and get you current. Some of them, as old as they are, should be charge-offs. A charge-off specifically stands for an accounting transaction. The lender, be it Capital One, has said, you know what? We need some losses for the year. We made a lot of money. So they'll take certain accounts like these, and they're going to charge them off their receivables. And that's what that term really means. They've now taken that account and wiped it to zero in terms of you making payments and of its value within their books. And they've charged the account off of that number. Now, I'm only giving you this so you understand how that works. Really is the same thing as a collection. It's just an accounting procedure for the institution that has it. What ends up happening is they had $100 in profit and they charged off $50, they only have $50 in profit. So they only pay tax on the 50. So many of the stores, many of the banks will take certain accounts and bring it to a number. We're going to write off $3 million this year. We're going to write off $1 million this year. Whether they're collecting it or not, it's an accounting procedure and practice to work on taxes. Now, just so you know, if an account's charged off and they sell it at a reduced number, or you call them up because you want to buy a house and go, hey, man, I didn't know I still owed you money. What do I owe you? Well, back in the day, you paid off this account, but you owed $200 in late fees and yada, 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 and you still owe us $200. When you pay it, that $200 is all profit to the institution. Why? Because they charged it off the profitability the year before, and that goes into as if it was a new sale. Just so you know, a little tidbit on how that works. Okay. All right. So collection, a charge off, and then we have a collection. It's the same answer. You could look at it. Again, plain green. Sold to National Credit Adjusters. Here we go. Other credit history, none. Inquiries, none. Public record, we have Monmouth County Special District, 313, $5,228 to judgment from OPS 9 LLC. And if you look up top, I bet you might be able to find them. Or it could be someone bought it and filed a judgment. Now, you also have Middlesex County Lenders Financial Financial, $2,550 judgment. Capital One, $1,135 judgment. Albany County Clerk, State of New York. You might have owed the State of New York $275 in back taxes. And you have all the listings here from Pinnacle. Look, plain green. That was a judgment. 93 Mac Road, Suite, P.O. Box 270, Box Elder, Montana. And there's a phone number. Miscellaneous information and high-risk fraud. Doesn't say that there is. It just puts his name, which is his exact name. Should have blanked that out. All right, here's a good thing. Next page, last but not least. You have a sheet that whenever there's a derogatory account or a new thing, it'll say, write your explanation here. Your borrowers will get this sheet from our processing department, and we'll have to fill in the answers. Explanation, it was 30 days late. To collection, what happened? And they'll put the answers in here and send it back to us. But this is a sheet right from the credit report, okay? So, what did we learn from credit today? What's the first thing you tell a borrower when you're doing a mortgage application? Don't do anything.
I had the one that maxed out their credit cards so they went on vacation and leased the result.
Yes.
They were in the middle of getting their loan.
We're still doing it.
And we're still working on it because it
Still waiting
delays
for it.
everything. We had to wait for them to come back. We had to correct the information.
Their credit score went down 40 points.
Yeah, credit score went down 40 points because it's a brand new account. Of course, it's coming back up. But what happened was they use the credit cards. If they use the cards just as they were reporting for that month, they made the payment the following month and the scores went back up. But we couldn't close it because the scores went low enough that it wasn't qualified anymore. It dipped below 620, went to 619. Am I correct?
604.
Oh, 604? All right. Then we were working with them to work with the credit agencies to get it up. And then we just happened to pull and it went up to 631 because they made the payments by the time the next account reporting showed up. So that was good. Now, one of the things that really works well is when you run the credit in the system, it will pull over the information when you hit download. You can populate the credit report in. Was a day where you had to actually handwrite or type every lender, account number, balance, payment, and it would go in here. Now it'll populate for you. It automatically does because we run everything within our Encompass, our LOS, loan originating software system. Okay. So if you look to the right on that 1003 and pull out page 2 and 3 of 5.
Can I ask you a question before you proceed?
Yes.
What if it's a divorce matter and it shows in derogatory, but they weren't responsible for that fill?
Okay.
Because the divorce decree says that it's
The 1003, everyone should have them in their old stuff. But you know what I'll do? I'll send it over. This has been given to 1003. Scan it back over. All right, so we have a question on the floor. You're divorced.
Right.
You're divorced, and derogatory comes up. It's a loaded question because we have to really ask what it is. Now, what ends up happening is a divorce agreement does not unbind somebody to the creditor. I'll give you an example. Husband and wife have a house. She decides to keep it. They both work. He says, I don't even want any money out of it. Or maybe he took a bigger portion of the 401k. Whatever the answer is, if she doesn't refinance to take him off, he's still obligated. When you go in for a mortgage and she's now 30 days late or in default, you're in default. Because on the day that you borrowed the money, the bank had both of your information and both of you borrowed the money. So when you go to the bank, if she doesn't pay, you're still obligated to pay. Now, when you make those arrangements, I've done a number of seminars for attorneys that handle divorces, and I've told them, it doesn't matter what your agreement says. That agreement's just binding between the two of them. It has nothing to do with the lender. The lender, what did they have to do that you got divorced? You applied together. I gave you the loan based on your information and your information and both your incomes together. What should happen is, and this is a great source of business, when you go meet an attorney, always ask them, by the way, do you do divorces? Yeah, I do. Did you know that even if the divorce decree says one of the parties are responsible, the other party is still obligated in the eyes of the lender? And they're going to go, are you kidding me? I didn't know how that affected you. It can ruin their scores. So I always implore them to get it resolved. What does that do for you? Well, let's say husband and wife are getting divorced. She's now applying as a refi. Attorney's going to refer it to you, gets him out, and now he goes and buys another house. Why? Because that attorney goes, hey, look, we got to get it done. I have someone that will work it for you, and you help him get the refinance and pay it off. And now she qualifies in her own name. Okay? The same answer applies in credit cards, auto payments. Now, there is a positive side to it. It really only becomes an issue when the credit becomes negative. If the party that's responsible doesn't pay. If the party that's responsible is paying and has been paying, when they look at it and go, hey, Joe, you got a lot of credit here. I don't think you're going to qualify for this loan. And Joe says, wait a minute. There's 2 cars in that report. The Mercedes is my wife's car. There's 3 credit cards that I'm not paying. And then there's 2 student loans that's not mine either, that's hers. So what happens is now you can get the divorce decree and the underwriter can see that they're making payments. Now, sometimes they want to see copies of canceled checks. Sometimes we'll have to over-verify it. But we can, on occasions, get that debt taken off their name to qualify for a loan. But if it shows up in a negative, it's never going to work because you're automatically responsible. But if they've been paying for 6 months or a year and I can prove it, hey, Mary, look, I'm Joe, Mary, I'm going to buy a new house. You've got everything here. I need help from you. I got to prove that you've been paying this. It all depends on what the client, sometimes they can show he's just a co-borrower. Okay, it was her account to begin with. That's why they mark it that way. She's the borrower, he's the co-borrower. And they can actually verify it. We can have that written in there. So then you can click the boxes that takes it off the back ratio. Okay? Basically what happens, you can use a divorce decree to try to qualify, but you may need more documents. And you're not going to be able to do it if you just get divorced. Like, all right, my divorce is going to be final on Thursday, and she's going to be responsible for that. Well, how do we know she's going to pay? Those things are not going to move as quickly as you think. Now, it's actually quick if we refinance, take her off, and get him off the deal or get her off the deal, and then they can move on to new property. But that could potentially create 2 loans for you. A reality that most attorneys did not know. I'm surprised to this day many of them don't know it. They only know it when they let it happen and the person goes bad and the client calls them back. Hey, I'm trying to buy a house and my wife screwed me. What do you mean? You let her stay on the house, you let her stay on the loan that we originally had, we didn't pay it off and now she's behind. I've had that happen at least 10 times over the last 35 years. Now I ask the question right away. Okay? Answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions on credit before we look at the back pages on how it's listed? All right, so if you go to page 2 and 3, you'll see that under assets and liabilities, the credit shows up there. Name of the company will print in, the balance and the payments, or rather the payment and how many months, and then the last box will be what the balance is. In your system, it'll also have a box to check off if it's going to be paid, like if it's a mortgage, to be paid. Maybe you're going to pay some things off to qualify. Very important. Many of our institutions do not allow you to pay off debt to qualify. Okay? You used to be able to go to anything of a loan payment, auto loan, personal loan, anything that has a start and an end. So you know what? Let me take it back step. What's the difference between an installment loan and a revolving debt? Who knows?
Installment loan has certain set payments and revolving doesn't.
So if I clarify what he just said, an installment loan has a start date and an end date and equal payments from beginning to end. I bought my car in July. It's $225 a month. July 17th, it's a 36-month loan. I'm paying it off October 2020. It's $225 a month. I know what it is. Rule used to be if the loan was less than 10 months old, they would let you negate it. They're starting to back that off and go to less than 6 months. But the rule originally was if the loan is less than 10 months, you can negate the payment because it's going to be gone soon, especially if you're close. Okay? You got to be careful with that. Revolving debt, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac never let you pay off to qualify unless you close a card. FHA will let you kind of pay it off with the proceeds of the loan or whatever funds you have to get you to qualify. So every lender, and these rules change by what's going on in the financial climate. When you have foreclosures, things get tougher. When people are working and the economy's doing better, they kind of loosen up the credit to get more business into the system. So as you're writing loans, you want to be careful what loan you're writing, who you're selling that loan to, and do the homework on what you need to do to qualify. Okay? We're working on a file with the Hazard Office that to qualify, she needs to pay off certain debts. And it has to be paid off, and the account has to be closed. Why does an account have to be closed? Give me an example. Right? If you pay a car off, it automatically closes, right? What happens if you pay a credit card off?
Still available for you to use.
That's right. You don't have to reapply. If you have a $2,000 balance, your payment's $80 a month, and you pay it off. Next month, you can go out and use your card again and run it up $2,000. So if you borrowed the $2,000 from your cousin to pay it off, you now can run the card up and get the $2,000, give them back the money just to qualify for the loan. Which is why there are rules against that too. Okay? So if you're going to qualify by paying off a credit card, the card's got to be closed in many cases. Okay?
Doesn't it affect your credit score, your FICO score, if you close an account?
Well, you're going to get a bonus to the score because you have less debt in your name. And then by closing the account, if you close it, it's not going to be so bad. You might lose a point or two, but you're going to gain because maybe it was an $1,800 card, you owe $1,650. You're at the max. So the minute you paid it off, you're in better shape. So if you were to close all of your accounts at the same time, your score might drop 100 points because now we have no credit to verify with you on because you close them all. If you have 2 or 3 cards open, some of the best scores I've seen is where people only have 2 or 3, maybe 4 accounts, all with low balances, and they're not brand new. They're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. They keep low balances, and they don't really have much in debt. And you'll see 800s and things like that. You'll be surprised because I've got a couple of ones I'm working on that the guy's credited 624, never had a late payment. High balance is 50, he owes 48. High balance is 48, he owes 42. When you have balances that are near the max cap, even though you've never been late, it's going to drag your score down. Brand new mortgage, until you start making payments on it, it kind of pulls your numbers down. Okay? You have a charge-off that you haven't done anything with for years. The minute you work on it and pay it, it becomes an updated account and you might lose 3 points. So there's a whole system and planning to working your credit. Okay. Fortunately, I'm going to probably have Vic come in. He'll be part of the seminar and he'll do a whole course on credit. What makes it work? What makes it tick? What to do, what not to do. And usually I don't let anybody do anything until we speak to a credit expert and they can run what's called a simulator. You actually have the ability to run the simulator in your system as well. Okay. They kind of know the ins and outs and move through it, navigate through it a little bit quicker to get what the scores would be. Yeah, I'm still in the middle. Good. So the simulator works really, really good in helping people decide what they need to do to get the scores where it needs to be. You'll be surprised somebody goes, oh, I thought if I had the credit it would work good. No, pay this one down 30%, pay this one down 20%, and we can get that score back up to 620, 640, 660, whatever it takes. Okay? Managing your credit's important. Lower balances, longevity of credit. It's not what it is today. It's what it's been over a period of time. You can get it corrected. Some days you can correct it in a day if you have the assets to do it. Most cases, it's going to take you a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. And some of the real extreme cases, it could take a year. But that's a client you could work with and cultivate and get their credit moving. That's when I say, can you do a 540? And I go, absolutely. Or a 580 FICO score? Yes. As long as they're at 580 from a 500, not currently at a 580 from a 680. Because if they're going bad, the numbers are coming down. I want the numbers to be going up.
But wouldn't you wait for a 580 score to wait until the scores increase? Otherwise, it's going to get penalized with the rate.
Ideally, I would tell them to wait, but I'm not them. If they feel they need this house and it's specific and I can qualify them on it, they've got good work, they could take a higher rate, knowing that what can they do in 6 months to a year?
Yeah.
They can refi. As soon as the score goes up, we can refinance them and lower that rate. But if that house is in the neighborhood that they want, it's got the right bedrooms, I've got 3 kids, it's a 3-bedroom, whatever the answer is, they will dictate what they want to do. Even if it changes the rate by a point or two. You know, I could give you 4.5. But with this score, you're going to be at 6 or 5 3/4, whatever the answer is. By the way, even the worst rates today are better than they were 20 years ago. We lived in a period where a great rate was 9.5%. My parents bought a house in 1980, and my stepfather worked for Chemical Bank, and the rate was 16.9, which was the discount off the 18% that was going on that day. 18%. There was high inflation at the time. It was 1978 to 1980. Inflation was rampant. Prime rate was 18.
21.5 got you.
21.5 is where it got to. Exactly. Exactly. Hey, you could always get back there.
It was a lot cheaper too.
But the key is we have lots of programs to accommodate whatever's going on with the credit. It's just a matter of what you have to pay, what it takes to qualify, and where you're going to go. Credit can be worked. Credit can be assisted. Credit can be massaged to work, but not all of it can be done in one day. You might have to take a little bit of time to get there. And then that's how you develop your relationship with your borrowers. I work with a number of people over years to help them get into a home. And then once you do it, guess what they become? Loyal friends and your best advocates. Everybody they know, this guy helped me. They may not want to tell them what the problem was. This guy helped me through thick and thin, got me done. I'll call him first. Call her first. Questions? Nope. We're good? That concludes our lesson for today.
Questions in the chat?
Go ahead. See if you got any questions in the chat.
Any questions? No? Any questions?
Thank you all.
Are you in there or I got in? Just leave me in.
We sent this out with the recording for class 7. Class 8 was a great class. Unfortunately, there was a problem with that recording. So I'll send out 7, and this is class 9.
Yeah, that was so funny that we forgot.